All right, so it's 7:03 and we're going to open this meeting of the Oakland Mills Community Association Village Board of Directors meeting. Our first order of business tonight, and then before we actually get to the resident remarks, I'm going to do a little screen share because of the number of people we have. But our first item of business tonight is to approve actually, Sandy, don't we technically have to approve minutes from last week's special session as well?
No, because they're going with this week's minutes.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we can approve them as one.
No, they go with this week, like today's minutes.
Right, so okay, I get it. See, I said I would screw this up and it only took me 1 minute. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is approve the minutes from the June 22nd, 2001 board meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, Ginny moves. I'll take Lynn as a second. Is there any discussion of the minutes? Okay, all in favor of approving? 1, 2.
Hi. Hello, good evening, Jonathan. I'm on the phone.
Oh, hi, Rena. Okay.
Yeah, hi. I heard you guys speaking, but you couldn't hear me, but I'm on the phone.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, okay.
Rena, if you need to, because we have a big crowd here tonight, so if you need to raise your hand to speak, hit *9, and then I'll see that you're trying to speak.
Okay, great. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So, Rebecca, did you raise your hand? Okay, so that's unanimous. That's 600. Okay, second item is to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? I got Bill's hand up as a second. Any discussion of tonight's agenda? Okay, for those on video, raise your hand if you're in favor, and then Rena, I'll ask you to do a voice.
Okay.
Okay, that's 5. And Rena?
Yes.
Okay, that's 600 for tonight's agenda. All right, we are underway. So before we start resident remarks, because we have more people here than I can actually see on a screen where I usually just say, wave at me, raise your hand, whatever. We are going to use the hand raise feature exclusively tonight for resident remarks. And I'm going to share my screen real quickly just because we haven't used this in one of our meetings before, just to make sure everyone's clear on how to do that, depending on which version of Zoom you're using. Hopefully everyone can see this. So if you want to make remarks during resident remarks and you're on a laptop or PC, you go to the bottom of your screen, you click the little smiling guy labeled reactions, and then you click the bar at the bottom of the reactions for raise hand. If you're on mobile, and this is Android, but I'm assuming iPhone is similar, you go to the 3 dots at the bottom of your screen for more, and then it'll pop up another screen, and raise hand will be one of the options on that screen. And if you're calling in on the phone and want to raise your hand to speak, press *9. And Zoom will basically rank everyone who's raising their hand in the order you raise them, and I'll just call on you one by one if you want to speak. Everyone gets 3 minutes to speak, and I'll be running a timer and try to give you a 30-second warning. And because of the size of the crowd and the special guests we have, I will unfortunately cut you off at 3 minutes if we have a lot of speakers. All right. Now let me get my meeting back. So we will go right into resident remarks. So now is the time. If you are a resident and you would like to make remarks, please go ahead and raise your hand, and I will call you in the order it appears in my participant list here. So it looks like I'm going to have David Smith first. I don't see any others right now. I see James Fegan. He's going to be second. All right, and if others raise your hand while Mr. Smith or Mr. Fegan are speaking, I will again call you in the order that Zoom presents them to me. So now I just need to get my timer going. And Mr. Smith, go ahead and unmute, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm David Smith. I live here in Oakland Mills, and not surprisingly, I'm going to talk about our high school and our middle school tonight. Just now, I want to brag a bit and then complain a bit. And then because I'm a retired consultant, I'm going to make a recommendation. I live here because two of my granddaughters live here, and they live here because their mom decided that good schools, including good schools with diverse student bodies, were a top priority for raising her girls. We're proud that Oakland Mills Middle and High School offer such quality education, and we're proud that our student bodies are so diverse, that they're composed of such a high proportion of underrepresented races and ethnicities and have the highest percentage of students receiving meal assistance in the county. We're proud of Oakland Mills and of Oakland Mills schools. Now for the complaint. We've been hearing about how our secondary schools need critical maintenance, $111 million of deferred maintenance on our high school, and that the school board hasn't even included it on the master plan that's going to be done by fiscal 2030. That's just the beginning. It gets worse, and you'll hear lots more this evening about the details. So I'll leave it at that. All I'm going to say right now is that it looks bad. We talk the talk about being committed to diversity and equity, but when it comes to walking the walk, well, this doesn't look good. But if it doesn't sound good when I say it right now, imagine what it will sound like when the Baltimore Sun decides to do another hit piece on us and uses hypocrisy or worse in the headline. It doesn't look good at all. But I'm not a complainer, I'm a consultant, and I have a recommendation. I'm confident that there's a perfectly good explanation for this situation, and that what we've got here is a failure to communicate. I'm sure that all the school board has to do, and do right away, is to explain in detail why things have gotten to this state, why it really isn't as bad as it looks,
30
and
seconds.
what they have planned to set it right. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Fegan, you're up.
Good evening, everyone. I'm James Fagan. I've been I've lived in Oakland Mills for the past 37 years. I was raised here. Grew up here, and my wife and I are raising our three children in this wonderful community. Last year, we became aware of the George Cook Cemetery, which is just a couple of hundred yards away from the other barn, and just right behind the ice rink. Starting last year, we cleaned hundreds of pounds of trash from that location. We cleaned hundreds of thousands of discarded drug needles, dead animals, random debris, and other stuff. As we moved forward throughout the year, it quickly became apparent to us that we were not just caretaker or overseers of cleaning up an old cemetery, but that we were caretakers, historians, and advocates for early Oakland Mills residents who time had forgot. In short, we had been restoring their identities. Over the past year, the cemetery is important for a couple of reasons. It is the resting place of one George Cook, who died in 1849. He was a War of 1812 veteran. It is also the resting place of his 4 family members and of one Margaret Mace. Margaret Mace was one of George Cook's slaves, and is and it represents the oldest headstone of an African American in Howard County. Also, there exists a diary that George Cook wrote, and in that diary, he writes of 30 to 40 slaves that were buried on unmarked graves that rest today between the cemetery and the athletic fields of Oakland Mills High. This cemetery is in terrible condition, and tonight, as part of new business, you're going to have the opportunity to approve the transferring of the George Cook Cemetery from the Howard Hughes Corporation to the Columbia Association. As part of the Columbia Association, once it's transferred, we have the opportunity to do a couple of things. One, we have the opportunity to clean up that cemetery, repair and straighten broken headstones, install fencing and a trash container. We can get the site designated as one of historic importance in Howard County. Finally, I propose to change the name of Robert Oliver Place to Margaret or Peggy Mace Place. Robert Oliver was a slaveholder, and I have documentation
30 seconds.
about how the Cook Olivers treated their servants. It's time to consider whether the name of Robert Oliver, a person who didn't even live on the site of the village center, is the best representative of our community. There's much more that I have to say, but my time is short, and I just thank you for your time and attention to this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Fegan. Can I ask one follow-up question just for the purpose of our agenda? You mentioned transfer from Howard Hughes to Columbia Association. My understanding it was to the Howard County government, and that's what I have in the agenda. Could you clarify who the transfer is going to?
From what I understand, and that it's going to the Columbia Association. That's what Howard Hughes emailed to me. Whether that's in fact true or not, I don't know. I'm not sure if it's going to Parks and Rec or to the government or to Columbia Association. Regardless, it shouldn't be in Howard Hughes's hands.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Oh no, all the pictures on my screen just moved around. Where's Ginny? Ginny, do you know whether this is going to propose to go to Columbia Association?
Actually, what I was going to say is I'd be happy to work with him with the board and maybe the Open Space Committee for the board to look into it and see exactly where it's supposed to go, what the issues are, what the conditions are, what would be involved, and work with you and Howard Hughes, and if the county should probably be a partner in the whole thing. So yeah, if that's okay with the board and your Open Space Committee.
Yeah, when we
to handle it, yeah.
Since it's a little unclear right now, when we get to that item of new business, and that's after the school conversation, I'll kind of redirect away from the way it's listed in the agenda and just make it a more general discussion about whether we support some transfer from Howard Hughes to some, not-for-profit or government entity that would better maintain it. And it's new business, so we're not making a final decision tonight anyway.
Okay.
All right, thanks. Okay, I see Mr. Hahn and then Mr. DiTomaso.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Thank you, board, for allowing us this opportunity. First of all, thank you to the 3 board members who are in attendance tonight. It means a great deal to the Oakland Mills community that we have 3 board members listening to the concerns of not just residents, but also teachers and students and former graduates. Time and time again, I've come before the Board of Education and the County Council and provided the same remarks of the data points. Why are our schools being treated the way they are? It makes no sense that over 20% of Howard County public school systems deferred maintenance is in 2 schools that are sit on the same road and are within walking distance to each other. And for years, staff, parents, students, and other community members have brought this issue up to the Board of Ed, and past boards have continued to push this issue aside. I urge this board to truly act on this. It makes no sense. 20% of the entire HCPSS deferred maintenance in 2 schools in the same cluster is ridiculous. And we have voiced our concerns time and time again, and yet nothing is done. I understand the county has problems with budget, and I understand that. However, Oakland Mills has never been mentioned and considered in the budget cycle when we talk about building maintenance, when we talk about materials, when we talk about distribution. Why is that the case? And students have complained time and time again. I encourage you, when it's safe to do so, when the county provides metrics, to go into the schools and talk to the students and hear their concerns firsthand. Students who have experienced and live in these schools and go to these schools every single day and know the school best. I encourage you to go and listen to their feedback, and not just listen to their feedback, but take it into consideration. This is a county that pushes student voice and talks about the power of student voice. And it's time for the county to stand behind those words and listen to the voices of the students when they bring up these issues. All the other issues we've talked about. And so I'm going to yield my time here and let some others talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hahn. Okay, we have Mr. Di Tommaso, and I saw Miss George's hand up, but now she's disappeared on me. So if you're out there, Rashida George, you would be next.
It's okay, Jonathan. It's all right.
Okay.
I may speak later. It's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, John D. Tommaso here. Proud to say I'm a 50-year resident of Oakland Mills. But I really was going to just react to the speaker who talked about the cemetery. I agree that it's something that needs to be highlighted, and we should be proud to have something like that within our community. My thought though, when the question came up about CA taking it over or the county, just to say, my immediate reaction was to say, we need the county to take this over. We have too many things now that Columbia Association has responsibility for that that the whole county gets to take advantage of. And certainly we don't want to add something to Columbia Association that should really be done by the county. So just my 2 cents worth for whatever it's worth. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. I have, is that Adya Sharma?
Yes, Adya Sharma.
Adya Sharma?
So good evening, everyone. I'm Adya Sharma, and I'm a proud graduate of Jeffers Elementary School, Lake Elkhorn Middle School, and Oakland Mills High School. I want to come and talk to you about what Mr. David Smith and Mr. Samuel Hahn have reiterated to you multiple times over and over again. I'm here to talk about the neglect that the Oakland Mills cluster of schools has been chronically facing. I've not only heard and read about this thanks to the great communication methods of Oakland Mills United made by our very own Oakland Mills students who are also present, but also experienced. For example, when I was at Lake Elkhorn Middle School, not only were we underfunded, we did not have the proper clubs, but our facilities were also not properly sustained at all. When my sister was there, who is 5 years younger than me, there was a lead scare in one of the water fountains, in one of the hand washing stations, and several of them had to be notified and barred from use because of the lead scare. When I went to Oakland Mills High School, there were lots of old textbooks that were beaten up and never replaced. The school was also very overcrowded, and we needed more space and bigger space for better facilities and better classrooms. We also have the county's oldest HVAC system. Since we are one of the county's oldest schools, our HVAC system has apparently not been replaced since its building, since 1973. And I want to reiterate that 20% of the deferred maintenance across the school system goes to the Oakland Mills Middle School and Oakland Mills High School cluster of schools. This is an embarrassing and disgusting gross negligence on behalf of the county. And I know it's easy to ignore this, to just get off the Zoom, click on the leave meeting button, and then go brush this off as unnecessary complaints. But this has been done time and time again. If you saw the state of these schools, that the county is chronically underfunding, you would understand why so many students before me have fought so hard to voice their issues and their concerns, and then been faced with such confusion when these issues have been brushed aside and not even considered at all. It's embarrassing to us and it's hurtful to us that other schools get to have new resources, that River Hill High School gets to have new facilities outside for their students and new laptops and new computers when our schools are left with old ragged textbooks. It's embarrassing and it depresses
30
me.
seconds.
And I want to tell you that look at these students who are taking action and being advocates for their schools, for their community. Take inspiration from their passion. It's easy to be apathetic about these things, but it's important to fight for the community, to make it a better place, to leave this world better than you found it. And that is what I want you to say today. Hear us, see us, and help fight for our change.
But
Thank you.
I was just about to say, thank you. Your time is up. That was perfect timing. Okay, I have Sylvia Hennessy.
Hi, everyone. Unfortunately, I can't get my camera on right now, but I'm Sylvia Hennessy. I wasn't going to say anything. However, I feel the need to. I attended Oakland Mills schools from Stevens Forest through Oakland Mills High School. I graduated in 2004. And that was the last time any type of work was done on the building. My freshman year, I remember it. And I think that it's important to note that Oakland Mills is a very resilient community. That's clear from the dedication of students, staff, community members. We produce very high achieving citizens. And I think it's important to note that with all of the troubles or just like things that may be challenging, we overcome time and time again. I don't share this very often. I myself was 2019 Howard County Teacher of the Year. I went to Oakland Mills High School. I'm proud of that. I've also heard over my time many negative stereotypes about our community. And I think that a large way to make change toward this is by giving us the attention we deserve. Talbot Springs being rebuilt is one of my happiest moments seeing when I drive by it. I did teacher professional development there 6 years ago, and it still had open space classrooms like I had in elementary school in the 90s. It shouldn't take that long to get change and equity among our schools, especially in a population that is very high need. And it's not the population that we want to change. We want the systems to change to better serve our community because we care about our community. So I moved back here with my husband, who also attended Oakland Mills High School. We were very intentional about where we wanted to live and raise our daughters. And we are very proud of our community. And I just thank you to the board members who are here. I just want you to really take in what everyone is saying, because you have the opportunity to help us advocate and make change that is beyond needed in our Oakland Mills community, which we love very much. So that's all.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any more hands. So I think we can move on to new business now. So it's my pleasure, and I'm very grateful to welcome 3 members of the Howard County Board of Education to our meeting. Antonia Watts, who is, well, all members serve the whole county, but Antonia Watts is elected by District 2, and Oakland Mills Village itself sits entirely within District 2. Jolene Mosley is elected by District 3. District 3 is right across Broken Land Parkway from us, and also includes parts of other communities. So part of District 3 also excuse me, attends Oakland Mills Middle and Oakland Mills High. And Jen Mallow is working her way back in. I just got a text saying she's trying to reconnect, but Jen Mallow is the Atholton Oakland Mills cluster, current Atholton Oakland Mills cluster representative on the Board of Education. So even after moving the Board of Education to councilmatic based elections, there are still cluster representatives. So the 3 women from the Board of Education we have with us tonight, I invited because of their ties to our communities or their ties to our schools through cluster representation. And I did receive questions about, well, you know, why not the whole board? How did you select? I selected who I selected for the reasons I just said. And, you know, because of issues with having quorums and public meetings and everything, I know sometimes it's difficult to invite everyone and have them in open meetings. So I thought we would start with the people who are closest to our community, either because of where they live or what their role is on the Board of Education. And it's hard for me to see who's in the meeting because we have more than 50 people, but Ms. Mallow, if you're out there, can you raise your hand or say something so I can move you back to the first screen so I can.
Sure. I'm sorry, I was kicked out, and so I'm having to reboot my computer, and so I'm logged in via a cell phone right now.
Okay, there you are. Okay, I'm going to move you back, and I'm not sure if you heard what I was saying before I said, if you're out there, can you say hi? But I was just doing the introductions and thanking all of you for coming out tonight. And you know, I also want to preface the conversation by saying I think all of you know why we invited you here. I think you know how the community feels. So, you know, I really don't want to focus this part of the discussion with our village board on, you know, what all the issues are. I mean, we all know the deferred maintenance bill. We all know what's in the capital improvement plan and the long-term master plan. We know all that. So instead of focusing on that, what our board did in collaboration with our education committee, our partners like Oakland Mills United, resident input, is we put together a set of guiding questions. And you know, we'd really like your thoughts on these questions. And we really ask these questions in the spirit of partnership, because you know, we know no single one of you can just fix this, and we know it takes, you know, more than just the Board of Education saying, yeah, we'll throw Oakland Mills High into the capital improvement plan. So, you know, we're here to partner and improve things, but obviously we also have concerns about how the process works, because, you know, one of my favorite things to say is you never get what you don't ask for. And one of the primary concerns is, at least when it comes to Oakland Mills High School, our school system hasn't been on the record asking for anything. So, you know, we know we're not going to get far advocating for it if the school system itself isn't saying this is a priority. We need to address this building with all this deferred maintenance and, you know, failing systems and fun stuff like that. So I'm actually just going to go right into our guiding questions and kind of walk through them. And, you know, I'd be very interested in what your thoughts are on those. Hopefully you've had some time to look them over and prepare. I didn't want, you know, there are no surprise questions here or anything like that, because I really wanted it to be a productive conversation. And, you know, my colleagues on the board may have follow-up questions, may have also have things they want to say. So, you know, as we always do, my colleagues on the board, I have all of you on the first screen so I can see you if you're trying to say something or jump in there. So I'll just call on you as we normally do, if that works okay for everyone. All right, I got the 2 thumbs up from Bill. I think that's all I need. Oh, I got one thumb up from Warren, Rebecca. Wow. It's like Siskel and Ebert on steroids tonight. Okay, so we grouped these questions into, oh, look at that. All right, I got a thumbs up from a future Oakland Mills student too. So we grouped these questions into really into categories. And the first category is really about I guess the kind of the tug of war between the school system's need for more capacity, but also the school system's need to maintain the facilities it already has. So, you know, given that situation where the Howard County keeps growing, but Howard County also has an existing physical plant that needs to be maintained, the first question we had was whether you could share your thoughts on what the plan could look like to maintain basically a growing footprint of facilities when, you know, Oakland Mills High itself has 111 million in deferred maintenance, which is, I mean, basically the cost of building a school. You know, maybe not with the land acquisition, but of building a new building, certainly. And also your thoughts on how we could make better use of the properties the school system already has and better maintain them before we're trying to acquire more land and expand out further. And I just lost Ms. Mallow again. I think you're here, but you just bounced off my screen. There you are. I'm going to move you back.
I can talk some to this if you
Okay.
guys want me to go first. Hello, I'm Jolene. Jonathan introduced me already, but a little more history. I live in District 3, but I do have children that have attended Oakland Mills Middle and Oakland Mills High School for the past several years. So I'm well aware of the area and the amazing people and the community that exists within those schools, as well as the community. And thank you for embracing my children and my family into your world as well. Also, you know, like I said, I've been at the schools. I understand what is happening. I understand more now as a board member what the process is for gaining funding, matching funding with the state and the county and all of the timelines and transitions and scope of work that occurs by talking. I've learned all of this by talking to the capital management team. And I'm trying to learn more every day. One of the things that I really think about a lot when I think about Oakland Mills High School in particular is how it does share a boundary with one of our most crowded high schools in the county, right? Howard High School. In fact, they share an elementary school. Students from an elementary school go to both of those high schools. And it seems pretty, it seems a very cyclical cycle to me where students are not moved into Oakland Mills High School to relieve overcrowding in other areas when they share boundaries with schools. And that leads not only to having overcrowded schools, but it also, the county prioritizes renovations based on how many seats a school has. So if you don't have enough seats, then you are prioritized to give your school seats, which happens with portables, it happens with renovations, it happens with things like that, because they don't want to tell people they have to move schools with redistricting or changing boundaries, because it's upsetting at a level, right, for many reasons to people to have to do that. It's this cycle where Oakland Mills High School in particular is under capacity regularly and not pinpointed or prioritized to have the funding to do renovations, to do, adding seats, right? But coupled with this issue is when we do add seats and we do renovations at schools, we're also updating the experience within the school that the students have, right? You're renovating the classrooms, you're adding, technology that is more modern that other schools have that you might not have. Sometimes that could be new revisions in audio visuals technology. It could also be, one of the students mentioned the books in the classroom. My daughter had an English book, which I get doesn't change very frequently since they're using online supplemental curriculum, but it was dated back to when I went to high school. The book was that she was bringing home, and she just graduated last year. So there is that, but the whole experience that the student has inside of the school, the technology they have, the resources they have, and I really do feel that we need to put our value in our priority into giving resources and opportunities to the students of every school, and not just schools that are over capacity and needed seats added. So that was a lot, but I hope that was something to follow. But that is really something that bothers me, is it's not only the outside of the school that we see deteriorating, it's also the experience of the students and teachers that live inside of the school, and the resources that they have. And that really bothers me as well. And I'm committed to have those hard conversations with the school system, as I'm sure you guys might have saw during one of the meetings when I brought up my concern when they are saying that one of the newest middle school needs renovations and addition, which also feeds into our high school, the Oakland Mills High School. And by then, if they moved them up in priority because they need capacity, it bumps Oakland Mills Middle School back. So, but I did bring that to light in the public, hoping that, some different decisions can be made in that prioritization when there are definite decisions made, because that was just a feasibility study. It wasn't the path, right? So when we have those conversations of what is the path, it needs discussed. Thanks.
Thank you. Your comments actually led very well into the next question, but I wanted to make sure that Ms. Watts or Ms. Mallow didn't want to add anything to the first response.
I'll add something. I mean, Jolene's covered the majority of it. I think also, and I'm sure I've said this to you before, Jonathan, like I think there's a PR issue here too at work. If the school doesn't look good, parents don't want to send their kids there. And the parents don't want to send their kids there, the school doesn't fund it, right? So like we've got this kind of another cycle of things that are happening whereby the building doesn't look good, the textbooks don't look great. So parents are like, I don't want to, even though they're all Howard County teachers and the teachers at Oakland Mills are phenomenal, it doesn't, it just doesn't bode well. So, while you're on the inside you can see like how great the school is. People that are looking from the outside only see the building. They only hear, you know, the textbooks. They only know that their kid can't take X, Y, and Z class there because they just don't even offer it at Oakland Mills, right? So you have all these kind of, you know, you're not investing in the school, and then parents thereby don't want to invest in the school. And so I think that's one of the things that has to be changed. Like, it's kind of, we're playing this like chicken and egg thing. Like, do we put the money in, right? That would be our goal, put the money into the school so that we can thereby attract more people, right? Like, and Oakland Mills just doesn't get good PR. It doesn't get good PR about the things that the school is doing, the students are doing. And I think you really need that to attract more people and make sure people know that this is a great place to go.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question on that, just while it's in my mind, because it's not in my list of questions. I think the PR thing is interesting, but you know, the capital improvement plan and the long-term plan, it starts with the paid staff in central office who are supposed to be objective about this. So how do you do appropriate PR so that the central office staff will actually look at this and go, wow, $111 million, that's crazy. You know, because it goes back to what I was saying. It's if you don't get what you're not asking for, if the system's not asking for it, then we can't even do the PR to make sure you get it. So, you know, it feels a bit chicken and egg there as well.
Yeah, I said the same thing, chicken and egg, right? So so I've had conversations with central office staff about what's happening with deferred maintenance. And it's the same thing that Julian already spoke to, right? Like, you have a Thomas Viaduct, which is, once it's built, it was already over capacity. So then they're looking at in capacity, I think your next question, but they're looking at the capacity of this school that they just built, and they're trying to think of, do we shuffle people around or do we add capacity to this school? So it's not as if they are playing favorites. It's that they're trying to maintain a stability as well. This is what I've been told as well, right? They don't want to do a big redistricting to move a bunch of people away from their closest school, when they could put the money exactly where it is to alleviate the burden, right? So it's not, and I think you could start your PR campaign at curriculum. You could start it at books. It doesn't have to be HVAC, right? Like that's a big thing to chew off. You could start it smaller and address some of the things, like you could advocate for the same clubs. You could advocate for a virtual option for your students to be able to take AP German or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, you could advocate for certain things that make the school, like, for example, you know, Stevens Forest, for example, I'll just use them, the elementary school, like, they don't have the same after school activities. So then when I'm thinking like, oh, my kid takes karate or whatever it is, at this elementary school, why would I want to go to Stevens Forest if they don't have the after school activity that we're used to getting? So I think that's like, and that's a good village board thing, right? Like, you can make sure that you have the supports that parents are looking for at the school level. That doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, $100 million of deferred maintenance. So I think you could bite off smaller chunks.
I'd like to weigh in just a little, because I have a slightly different take on how you can back up that PR thing. Because I totally agree with my colleagues that your schools have in many ways gone underrepresented in their quality. Like, there aren't a lot of cheerleaders coming to the Board of Education saying, rah, rah, isn't Oakland Mills cluster great? And you guys are amazing. And you have this amazing set of schools and fantastic educators. One of the key things is that every decision we make, a lot of times it's counting to 4 or counting to 5. How many votes do you have to change the system? And we saw with the change in our election system, where you now have a representative from District 2 and you now have a representative from District 3, that they're bringing that cheerleader force for you, as well as they're elevating your concerns. And we're looking at 2022, what candidates are coming forward that can represent your concerns and the concerns of families like yours that do invest in older schools in Columbia. Like, while my kids didn't go to Oakland Mills, they went to Swansfield and Harper's Choice and Wild Lake, that have very similar reputations to your schools and similar investments. And I know that that is something I was able to capitalize on and say, look, you know, our schools really are important. And so right now, I'd say you've got a lot of time to start encouraging high quality candidates to run in next year's election for the Board of Ed. There's going to be 2 open seats. So what kind of people fill those 2 open seats? Are they people who can contribute to making decisions that also really support the needs of your community?
Thank you. I know it's probably going to take a while to get through all of this. So I'm going to jump around a little bit, but, you know, capacity has come up a couple of times, and, you know, the school system's efforts not to move people. So if we put the middle school aside right now and just focus on the high school, since the high school is not in the plan, we're building high school 13, high school 14 is in the plan. So that's going to force moving people around. So I guess my question is, why are we looking at the current attendance areas of the schools? You know, Ms. Mosley gave the example of Howard completely overflowing and sharing a border with Oakland Mills that is underpopulated. Why aren't we looking at this across the system and making better use of the facilities we have? Because we're going to move students around anyway if we build new buildings. And I'm not saying the system wouldn't still need new buildings, but you know, to the Oakland Mills community, the concern is we see, you know, even though Long Reach dates back to the 90s, it's still 20 years newer than Oakland Mills. You know, Howard has been redone, Atherton has been redone, Hammond is being redone, High School 13 is being built, High School 14 is definitely higher priority than Oakland Mills because it actually exists in the plan. So if you look out to about 2030, basically what you have on the east side of 29 are schools that have either been maintained, redone, you know, rebuilt or built, and then Oakland Mills from 1973. So what's the future there if everything is just based on the current attendance areas and the projections for those attendance areas, when we know that the attendance areas can be changed if we want them to, and they will have to be changed regardless because of new schools coming online?
Yeah. I don't know if people on the call know, but my full-time job, I'm a data scientist. So issues like this, and you know, I'm really interested in projections and migration and optimization and things like that. So when I think of this exact issue that we're dealing with, I might be looking at it with a different vision than what some people have, right? And it is I try to be very objective about it. One thing I do think about, and I have been talking about with Office of School Planning, is more monitoring the projections and the change in student counts percentages in our feed structures that exist. Our school system across the entire county, if you start off and you look at the feed system, every school is connected, right? So like sometimes you hear people say, oh, well, if the western part of the county is snowy, then we should just close those schools. But with our feed structure, every single one of them is connected across, right? And those feed structures can be, some of them are very small percentages and some of them are really large percentages. But anyway, I think monitoring these feed structures as new developments come on, and as we have our migration of our community that it is, right? We have resales and things like that change our populations in our feeds to our different schools. Monitoring these feed structures to see if there is larger ones moving, then that might be an indicator that if it is along a boundary that already exists to a school that has capacity, that might be an easy way to start identifying where to move students or which groups of students to move, because it will still stay in alignment with increase in their grouping and things like that, instead of just saying, you know, and having a whole battle of this polygon and that polygon and this school and that school, coming up with a full structure and a full plan that the community can take in and understand and you know, absorb the information and point out things that don't work, like our bus routes, actually, there's not a road there and we can't go that way, or something like that, that is an actual issue, right? One of the things that I find very frustrating when we start talking about redistricting is the pain that the people express when how the processes have gone before, where the Board of Ed comes up to the plate with ideas and changes that, you know, aren't developed by, you know, an office that has experience developing these things, or they're developed on the fly based on discussions during a Board of Ed meeting. And I think that that whole experience and that whole process can be really changed so that it isn't as hurtful to people individually, and that we can understand that, you know, we want the best for our students. We want them to have the opportunities and we want them to have great experiences at their schools. But we also are dealing with this capacity issue at some schools, which, like I said before, hits into where we're doing renovations and how we're prioritizing our funding, right? And I think we need to maybe change that look a little bit. So I've been trying to come up with ways to monitor just the fluctuations in where the students are and where they're coming from, and the feeds, where their feeds are, to make those movements a little more clear and maybe a little more easy to project at feed level. Anyway.
Okay, thank you. I'm kind of jumping around here now, just in the interest of time. So, you know, this was already brought up, and you know, I understand. I mean, we all want the PR for the Oakland Mills schools, and as a village board and as a community, we try to do that. And you know, one thing that I know you know about Oakland Mills is that Oakland Mills High, I think, among all the high schools, it has the, you know, highest rates of students receiving free and reduced meals. I think it probably has the highest proportions of its population coming from traditionally underrepresented racial and ethnic groups. So, you know, that can be a challenge, you know, blending cultures, you know, basically, you know, having the basic challenges of life, you know, versus having time to attend Board of Education meetings. But, you know, I would like to point out, for a typical village board meeting would not have 54 people in attendance. It would have the board and maybe a guest and maybe a couple of people who really have nothing better to do on a Tuesday night. So, you know, 54 people is I realize this is a community of 10,000 people, but 54 people at a village board meeting is indicative of a lot of concern and interest. But, you know, as I said at the beginning, we really need partners in this. You know, we've done the testimony route. We've gone to the Board of Education. We've gone to the county council. We've written things to the state. We've, you know, encouraged our residents to write in, and I'm sure they are writing in. But, you know, there's only, I guess there's only so much the community itself can do when we don't own the buildings. We don't make the decisions about who attends the schools. We go where we're sent. You know, I think what the biggest concern is that when you talk about going where you're sent, and when you think about, you know, who makes up the population of schools like Oakland Mills Middle and Oakland Mills High, it certainly looks like it doesn't align with the equity focus and the strategic call to action. So, you know, can you comment on that piece of it? Because, you know, that's definitely a concern of our community. And as one of our residents said, you know, we're not saying change the composition of our schools. We're saying treat, you know, those who go to our schools as you're treating those who go to other schools.
I'll let my colleagues talk because I talked a lot, but I can talk some more if they don't want to have anything to add.
I thought Ms. Mallow was trying to unmute. So I can speak to the equity piece. And I'll tie it into something that was said earlier. I think you really do have to have people that are committed to equity, not just they talk about it during their campaign speech, and when it comes down to votes, they don't actually vote for equity. And I think we've seen that play out. We've seen that play out this board. We've seen it play out in all the previous boards before. So I think to really commit to equity, I think you have to have somebody who is going to consistently vote that way. And I don't even know what else to say about that in terms of like your vetting process for the people that are supporting you, right? Because it does take a strong board member to kind of stand up, and especially in the climate of today, to stand up for equity. And to repeatedly kind of beat that drum to say that this community is underserved, this community is not, doesn't have the same. And I think, and yeah, I just think that it takes a lot. Nothing is going to move forward with one board member. It's just not. And you need a village of board members that are going to be able to advance the cause. I mean, I've spoken to Samuel, I've spoken to Jonathan, like I've spoken about this topic many times, and even if we bring it up in meetings, it only goes so far as the people that are willing to fight for it. And so I'm not really sure like how to kind of keep addressing the issue of equity when we just don't have an equity-based board.
And this kind of goes back to where I was talking about when you are looking to elect people, you need people that have demonstrated that they're committed to taking hard votes. When we talk about redistricting, I would put forward votes of, hey, we need to fill Oakland Mills. We need to fill Oakland Mills. And then someone would walk it back so it's really a lot when we're looking at how to balance this push and pull. And the most change that you will get is if you get a majority of people who have either experienced it, lived it, who have demonstrated that they have this solid understanding. Like I'm thinking about, I see Nancy Thompson, the principal of Talbot Springs, on the call, and I'm thinking about the work that I've seen her people do with Blessings in a Backpack and the interactions with Oakland Mills online and building those helping to those community individuals who are involved and engaged, maybe take that additional step of running and joining a team of people who really understand what's going on in our underserved communities. But it's hard because it's not a high paying job and it's not a particularly glamorous job to sit in a chair for 6-hour meetings a couple of times a month, in addition to all the other work. So it is a challenge, but I do think it can be done because I think what you're demonstrating is that you have 51 people on this call, and it's 51 people who really, really care about this, who care about your schools and want to make a difference. So how do you leverage that? You leverage it by building a team of people to support candidates to get on the board and be willing to, come up with ideas and think about equity in all different manners. Because equity is certainly a lens, and it's a way of looking at problems and how do you make solutions with that lens. And it doesn't look like just rubber stamping things. It really does take a Jolene thinking out of the box and Antonia talking about making these hard votes and really building up a village.
Okay, thank you. I see Rebecca with a hand up and then Ginny.
Okay. Oh, hold on, let me put my hand down.
I got you.
Okay. Two things. One, we can't really afford to wait 2 years for the next election to get Oakland Mills on the maintenance thing. So we could totally deal with that later. And maybe you can walk us through, maybe everybody else knows, but I don't know. I thought that we had one representative for our area, and Antonia is obviously representing us really well. But do we have the other, you said there's 2 more seats open. Do we have other seats that could represent us? And then pause, and then I have another part of that question, or another part of the question also, is
Okay.
if there are people already, obviously you guys are awesome and really supportive of Oakland Mills. Are there other candidates that are already on the board, or other members already on the board that maybe, and maybe you don't want to answer this publicly, but maybe we can reach out to and persuade, and like who might be willing? Because Jen, you said 4 to 5 people, so maybe there's somebody else that can be convinced of Oakland Mills splendor to make things happen now instead of in 2 years.
So I'm gonna take a 2-pronged approach. One is the 2 open seats that will be elected in 2022 are the 2 at-large seats. So there's 5 councilmanic districts, the 2 at-large. The 2 at-large are ostensibly open and up for grabs. So there's that. Then yes, absolutely reach out to the other board members, because absent talking to them, again, as Jonathan said, you don't get what you don't ask for. So reach out to them, but also while we occasionally hear from the Oakland Mills community, in the fall, we will have a hearing on the capital budget. If all 50 of you showed up, it would be mind-boggling and fantastic. And if you give me 3 minutes, I'll come back, I'll do a little research on my other monitor and tell you when that hearing is currently slated, because more often than not, we get 2, 3 people talking about the capital budget. And it's only when things are in danger of being cut that we really hear the outcry, not the, we need you to put this on the CIP now. And that's really where it needs to go. The other thing is, every time you can have the opportunity to come to a board meeting and talk about something in need of renovation at one of your schools, the more it's elevated. And there's time at all of the board meetings. There's 10 slots in total, 5 at 4 o'clock and 5 at approximately 7 o'clock. And they are filled on a first come, first served basis. You get 3 minutes, but every time you can come and present, okay, here's another thing that needs renovated. Here's another thing that needs renovated. It raises awareness in a way that, to those that are very responsive to that kind of pressure as board members, there are some board members that are more responsive than others that are like, oh, I didn't know about that. Oh, okay, yes, maybe you do need that renovation. Maybe you do need your fascia fixed, whatever it is. And again, repetition will reinforce it, and it becomes much harder to say, oh, no, they don't need it. They can just wait a little bit longer. So that would be my recommendation, is take every opportunity you have to come and speak to us.
Can I add one?
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can I add one thing? Just talking about advocacy, I think one of the things, being a new board member, that I've seen is some groups that have an amazing advocacy. Like they know what they want and they just singularly go after it. They fill the spots that Miss Mallow is talking about every board meeting. They come to every board meeting to speak about their issue, and they have so when I was saying, like, just capital improvement is such a big thing that if you could focus on one very specific thing to move forward and then pick up other things as well. I think that's, from what I've seen, that's a nice, like a nice way to advocate and to kind of get people mobilized, because it's, HVAC is not it's not like a sexy thing, if you will, right? Like it's not something that's appealing. So sometimes you can have people that I don't know. I don't know a good way to say it. I'm just trying to say, like, bite off something that you can manage, and that your group together can actually manage, so that you can, and then look at the org chart, like look at the organizational chart and see who's in charge of that, and email that person.
So
right? Like,
I know we have Ginny waiting in the wings, but can I ask a follow-up? Because that I understand what you're saying, but if you think about what we're dealing with here, it becomes tough, because there is,
and I think
if you take Oakland Mills High and you take the $111 million, there's so much that hasn't been done that I've actually talked to current and former administrators at the school about when they did the roof. And basically, as soon as they did the roof, it started leaking because other things on the building weren't fixed. So the new roof didn't seal properly and it was leaking. And basically what I learned from learning more about that building was, if you tackle one thing on a time in a building that's been neglected that long, not only does the thing you tackled not work properly, but all the other things are still broken. So, I mean, basically we are focused on one issue, and it's basically fix the school. Oakland Mills, Oakland Mills High should be in similar condition to other schools. It shouldn't be, one of every $8 of deferred maintenance across the whole, deferred maintenance plan. Like I said earlier, there's the equivalent cost of a new high school in deferred maintenance alone on the school. So when it gets that big, when the neglect's gone on that long, like how do you focus on one thing when it becomes whack-a-mole on a building of that age? I think that's the challenge we have.
I don't disagree with the needs, and I don't want you to misconstrue what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I think that you got to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. Like, you can come and advocate for capital improvements, but you can also advocate for curriculum, right? So I think you can do both and.
Okay, thank you. I know, Ginny, did you have your hand up, or I've lost? Okay, go ahead, Ginny. Ginny, you're muted.
Sorry, Jonathan.
There you go.
Just a couple of questions. Well, first, thank you for being here, the Board of Education members. We really appreciate it. It's an honor to have you at Oakland Mills and meeting with our residents. So thank you. Just a few questions. I hear, we should be doing a better job, PR, and PR partly is, as you say, attending the meetings and speaking. I know we've had people presenting this issue. It's not exactly a new issue. So it's a little shocking to me that, I guess, school board may still need to be educated on this, but okay. But I guess the staff is the one that prepares the budget and presents the budget, correct? So what is wrong with the staff that they don't see this as not just an equity issue, but a safety and a health issue and discrimination against our schools? What is wrong with the staff that they need to be educated about this? I doubt it. So what is really happening here is what I'm trying to understand. Do you have, are you getting any contacts from elected officials that's saying this is really an issue? School board members, you need to deal with this. That used to happen when I was on the county council and delegation. We talked to the school board all the time and said, hey, you want us to get some money? and you know, put some money into your budget, you've got to deal with certain things. Now, you're the elected official at the school board level, you make the final decision, but are you getting some pressure on our behalf from elected officials to say, this is wrong, this is morally wrong? So otherwise we can get a whole bunch of people, hopefully, and it is not easy to do that at your hearings. Or we could look at, would a lawsuit help, or would picketing, what do we need to do to be treated fairly? This is just morally wrong. Thank you.
I hear what you're
Thank you,
asking,
I'm-
Ginny.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I spoke right over you. I was going to say I'm going
ahead.
to go to Miss Mosley and then Miss Mallow.
Okay. I hear what you're saying, Jenny, and no, I haven't heard from county council members or other elected officials in prioritizing Oakland Mills deferred maintenance. I do believe District 2, Dr. Opal Jones, and District 3 is Christiana Rigby. If you, you know, it might be good for people to reach out to them and let them know that it should be a prioritization of what they're talking to us about. Or, you know, Dr. Ball, right? District 2, he lives in District 2. Yeah, so I just wanted to add that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have a meeting with Dr. Jones Monday, Bill, Sandy, and I. Another thing I'll point out, earlier in the spring or maybe late winter, when the county council was looking at the school system's budget proposals, and also when the Board of Education was looking at what the staff submitted, Oakland, I mean, to the extent anyone came out, Oakland Mills did come out. I think 3 of the 5 people testifying at one of the hearings were for Oakland Mills, and something like 2 out of 4. It was like 50 and 60%, something like that. We're talking about Oakland Mills to both the county council and the Board of Education. So, you know, I do want to note that to the extent anyone is coming out, Oakland Mills is, because I don't want to make the community feel as if it's not doing its part for its schools.
Right.
I do have 2 things to follow up on that. One, Michael Harris, who is Opal Jones's assistant, is on this call, so he is listening. As well as I see that Safa Hira is on the call, and she works with Dr. Ball. So again, I do know that your concerns are not just being heard by us, but are being heard by other elected officials. I do agree that it's not particularly a concern that I've heard from our elected officials. I think they have been, if I'm just being honest, they've been more worried about making sure that Talbot Springs is fully funded for its rebuild, as well as making sure that the state is putting in their fair share for High School 13, as well as for the Hammond renovation and expansion. But I'm going to tell you, I think the most important date coming up on the schedule is August 12th. August 12th, we're having a hearing for public input. So you would get 3 minutes like you did here. And it's a pre-development work session on the capital budget and the capital improvement program. So since the budget will not yet be set at that meeting, that's the time where you have the most theoretical impact. And then we'll receive the budget presentation on September 3rd. And there'll be another hearing on September 23rd. And if there isn't a change or a reflection in the budget, that's where you come back to us and say, we came out, we really expressed all of this, and here's what we see as a priority and a need. But it is, if we're being perfectly honest, it's really hard because we have insufficient seats in our schools. And the state, by and large, is only funding projects that deal with capacity, not with renovation. So we need to be looking at, are there other avenues with which we can do renovative work rather than just through state funding. So it's my hope that we use some of the ESSER funds the SO3 funds that the application is just came out and the staff is getting ready to submit. But it's my hope that we use some of that for some of these big ticket items that are allowable, like an HVAC, because it does deal with air quality with regards to the pandemic. And I hear your frustration about having to beat the drum again and again and again. But right now, that is the way the advocacy is most effective, is the constant beat it again, beat it again, beat it again. And there are groups that you can watch and see how effective they've been. And the other thing that many of these groups do is they come, they give their talk, and then they say, hey, can I have a coffee with you, board member, whomever, and tell you a little bit more about this, because some of the board members are very receptive to that personal relationship and learning more about what's going on. So extend the invitations with the principals. If the principals are willing, have the principals extend the invitations. Hey, come to my school, see what's going on. That will help both build the PR as well as highlight the discrepancies and the disparities in the equitable situation.
Thank you. I know it's actually getting pretty late, and I normally, once we're in business, I try to keep the conversation between the board and our guests, unless there's an actual question and answer session. But we do have an Oakland Mills treasurer here who had her hand up, and I don't know whether she is still trying to speak, but Nancy Thompson, are you still out there, and were you trying to speak? Because we will make an exception for you.
Yes, I am still out there. So as many of you know, the journey with Talbot Springs, it was a good decade, and I don't think we have that sort of time available here for this current project. But it was only because of the advocacy. One of our board members, and I apologize, ladies, which one of you said, talking about positive PR. We tried that. I mean, we invited real estate agents in. We contacted the Baltimore Sun. We contacted the Columbia Flyer. We contacted all the local news agencies looking to share positive news. And it was an exhausting fight. And then the minute something went wrong, we were at the top of the news. Like, I think, Jonathan, was it just last summer when there was a murder off the property of Talbot Springs, and the first thing mentioned was Talbot Springs.
It was near Talbot Springs where the reporter found a deserted playground. Never mind that the building was closed for COVID and was a construction zone. But that's how the story was written.
Yeah,
there was a murder, and Talbot Springs was nearby. And when the reporter visited, she made an observation on its deserted playground and the faded buildings around it.
Yeah, so I mean, positive PR has been tried. I agree with working with the Board of Education members and with and also targeting an issue of concern. And we had a major issue of concern, and our advocate at the time on the board, and I know she's not running again, was Vicky Cotroneo. She spoke loudly, she spoke often, but ultimately it was the village. I mean, it was the whole group. I mean, once Jonathan Edelson got on board, there was no stopping the train. But it was we went to county council meetings. I don't know how many nights we were out at board meetings, at county council meetings. I don't know. I mean, again, I love our Board of Education, but I don't attend all the meetings. I do watch you online, but I mean, I was at board meeting after board meeting. It is a question of advocacy, and it is a question of pinpointing specific problems. I do appreciate which one of the ladies, and again, board members, I apologize, I didn't write down your names. When you were working with older materials in an older building, and somebody mentioned the book, I think it was you, Jolene, there's a lack of hope. we work so hard at Talbot Springs every single day to lift the kids and to lift each other, because we know we are working in a building right now that is his classrooms that are 65% MSDE 2010 recommendation size. And we're stuffed in there. And we love each other because we're very close in space with one another. But honestly, it is about hope and knowing that right now that we're going to have new desks, we're going to have new technology. Somebody mentioned the Oakland Mills roof leaking. Same thing happened to Talbot Springs 15 summers ago. We got a new roof. Minute was on, it leaked. And it started a myriad of other problems, which then led us to being worried about HVAC, which then led us to being worried about health, breathing in the building. So that was our targeted issue that was helpful to us. So I know I've said a lot of things, but ultimately it was about everybody stepping in. I see Krista there. Krista 3-foot spoke up at a meeting. Krista I never knew her before. And all of a sudden someone from Stevens Forest was heavily advocating for Talbot Springs new building. I mean, it practically brought me to tears because I felt like we had been alone in a fight for so long. And this is really emotional for me. We fought for years. For this. Sandy Cedarbaum knows, Jenny Thomas knows. We were on this for years and years. And to get the whole community rallied behind what was correct, what was true, what was fair for the young children in our community who are as worthy as any other child whose parents earn many millions of dollars a year, was so energizing ultimately that, the victory ultimately of the approval through the second time around was really sweet. So I came tonight because I want to show my personal support for these projects, because without the support of the Oakland Mills community, the citizens, without the support of the Howard County Board of Education, without the support of the Howard County Council, we wouldn't be looking at that beautiful, beautiful building, which is rising like a phoenix right now out of the ground. If you haven't driven by, you should. It's beautiful. So thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate having a moment to speak.
Thank you very much. I should have just turned the whole meeting over to you. And since you mentioned Krista, I see her hand's not up now up, so I'm going to get to her. Bill, I'm going to get to you. I had actually a question now that Mrs. Thompson has spoken, because this is actually one of the questions on our list. In the case of Talbot Springs, Mrs. Thompson is giving credit to anyone and everyone else, but there was one central figure to all of that, and that was Mrs. Thompson, the principal, who's been in the Oakland Mills community a long time. First at Stevens Forest and has been at Talbot Springs a long time. And another of our concerns we were hoping you can speak to, especially, when you said if the principal is willing to invite you in, if the principal is familiar with the issues, is we're concerned about just that. Dr. Fink is going into his 4th year at Oakland Mills High, and that's fantastic. But the first senior class he had, they had 4 principals in their 4 years at Oakland Mills High. And, every June, we just wait anxiously to hear that Oakland Mills High is going to get another principal. Oakland Mills Middle had 2 principals in the 3 years my daughter was there, and I think it's had, I want to say, 4 principals in the past 7 years. It's big. So that's in addition to the effect that has on the academics, the consistency for the students and the staff, curriculum, everything else. We're also concerned that with that kind of turnover, who really is there to advocate for those schools? Who is there to gain enough experience to invite members of the Board of Education in to say, look at this. I now know the building inside and out. Here's what $111 million represents, or here's what $51 million represents. So I was wondering if any of you could speak to the frequency of administrative turnover in those 2 buildings as well.
I'll speak to it briefly. So one thing to keep in mind is that while the board approves the promotions of individuals, the administrative transfers and the turnover of principals is under the auspices of the superintendent and his staff. That being said, I know that you do have strong advocates within the board who have raised this issue and said that consistency is critical and it needs to be addressed systemically and immediately. And I think when you look at Oakland Mills Middle, that one of the key reasons why your assistant principal was promoted to be the principal of the school rather than bringing in another figure is that they did want to provide the school with a leader who had been there a long time. And I believe she has been there 8 years. So she's been on the job effectively 13 days now. And I'm sure has been able to hit the ground running because she is a part of your community and your school. But knowing that you have advocates on the board who are passionate about this and know about this, again, we sift through a ton of information, but I can assure you that you have passionate advocates on this specific issue.
I'm happy to name names. It's Jolene spoke out about this kind of churn in the administration, and fiercely so, right? And I will also add in kind of what I said about this is that how can I put this? I'm a pretty straightforward person. So here we go. The churn comes from the support that is available for the administration, for the teachers. And when you have a school that the needs are high, that's a lot for the people that work there. And so you see people moving from these roles to other positions in the county. And so it goes back to, and Jolene mentioned this definitely in our meeting. And I've seen this as a teacher that, usually the schools that have the highest free and reduced meals percentage have the teachers with the lowest amount of experience. And they have the administrators with the lowest amount of experience. And so you get this, like, let's get our foot in the door and teach here for a year or be administrator here, and then they move on. And so it really goes to how can we support the people that are there and keep them there and make it a place that they want to stay for a long time. Dr. Fink is there because he wants to be there. And I think that's how you get strong schools, is for administrators like Ms. Thompson who want to be there. And I know I'm the person who brought up PR and that kind of thing. Like it comes from like supporting. You want to be at a place where your computer's going to turn on in the morning when you get there, right? Like you want to be a place with just some very, very simple things where you don't have to wear a sweater in the summer because you're not sure about the AC. So it's all a big cycle of like chicken and egg, and how do we get good people to stay to teach our kids, and then if we don't have the right supports, if we don't have the right infrastructure in place, and so we are speaking about this and we are bringing this forward and we are having these like hard conversations behind closed doors about what does it take to retain. Teacher retention is a big thing for me. Like, what does it take to retain teachers in these spaces? Because you also don't want a principal there that doesn't want to be there, right? Like so that's a whole different thing. So I don't even know what the actual question was. So like that's what we're focusing on, is trying to make sure that the superintendent is aware that the board, the members of the board, especially those are supporting your community, that we're speaking out and saying, like, what can we do to keep these principals here, and so that we don't burn them out, and so they're not looking for in 2 years to voluntary transfer out of the school. So yeah, that's where we are.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to Krista and then to Bill, and then I know it's getting late, so I'm going to wrap us up and let you go, because I know you saw an agenda that had you spending a lot less time with us than you have spent, and I appreciate it. Krista, are you still there?
Yeah, I am still here. You hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'll try to be really quick. And, really we're talking about other, schools who can gather these huge groups who come and testify en masse, and, they really make a difference. And so really the question that I want to ask, and maybe it's more of a point I want to make, is, what do those groups look like? Right? Like, are they made up of people who are working multiple jobs at Chick-fil-A and cleaning houses? And, are they the people who are working nights and weekends, just to make ends meet? And I'm asking this question as someone who's been on the board of Stevens Forest, which is, for most of the time I was there, it was the school with the highest rate of poverty in the entire county. I've been on the board since 2013 or 2014. And, we have advocated ourselves breathless, and it's only been 5 or 6 of us, because we are the only people literally who can do it. It's not a matter of, can we get people, or are people interested, or are they not interested? It's, people are just trying to make ends meet. They're just trying to get through their lives. And, it's extremely hard for us to get these kinds of groups of people to speak for us like this, like other groups do. And I think that's kind of why we really needed to talk to the Board of Education, because we need advocates outside of our community. And that's it.
I'll answer that. And then Ms. Julian, do you want to go?
I was just going to mention that I completely agree with that, and we don't have public transportation to the Board of Ed building. But one thing that we will be maintaining is virtual public testimony for our communities. So that will take out the whole having to physically be at the Board of Ed to give testimony. People can also email or call or text our phones. Those are all methods of communication that do work to give testimony. But I hear what you're saying, that the people might not even have the opportunity to do those things. I know that a lot of board members listen to students when they email. I know they're very receptive to that. So if students have the time to write about what they're passionate about and the change that they're passionate about and having, then that might be a great opportunity for the community that has a voice to expand, rather than just the 50 people that are on the call, right? That might be another area of expansion. But I totally hear what you're saying, and it is an issue that that communities have, that we have to, when someone can't say that something is not okay or not working well because they have other concerns that are a higher priority, we do need to be paying attention to that and speaking up.
So just to speak to that, because I've talked about advocacy, I think people don't actually know, like, they think they have to fill the whole 3 minutes when they come to talk to the board, or Miss Mosley talked about, like, just alternative ways that you can do that count. It doesn't have to be an email with attachments and PowerPoints and whatever it is. It just needs to be like, it could be a sentence, right? Like we read it. And so I think people it's the idea of advocating for something sometimes feels overwhelming, but I think that's one of the things that's lacking in our community. And I'll say our community, meaning Oakland Mills, but also the Black community, is that advocacy feels like it has to be a full-time job, and it does not. It can be very simple. It can be very small. And that's why I keep kind of going back to that, is that it just doesn't have to be this huge undertaking. And then to mention, the group that I've seen do advocacy the best has 5 solid people. And those 5 solid people show up and again and again and again, and they demand again and again and again. So it does not, it doesn't take this huge coordinated effort with people, and it just takes people really dedicated to the cause consistently. And so that I'll just kind of throw that out there.
Just to add on to that, there's two things I think. Keep it simple and always have an ask. Don't have 10 asks, have one ask. Because when we hear 10 asks, like we need this and this and this and this and this, it gets lost in the noise. It's too much. Where if you have, but always say, what are you looking for? What are you asking to have happen? If you want to change to the CIP, say, I want to change to the CIP. And that's the Capital Improvement Program is the official name of the document. For those that wouldn't be familiar with it. If you want Oakland Mills High School renovated, be at the top of the renovation list, just say that. Absent an ask, and as Antonia said, we do read them, but you send us 3 paragraphs and it's the same 3 paragraphs with 2 words different that 300 other people send, it tends to lose its efficacy. So it doesn't have to be, as Antonia said, a full-time job. It really can be quite simple and still impactful.
Thank you. Bill, did you still have something?
Yes. I'm Bill McCormack. I'm Vice Chair of the Oakland Mills Village Board. I want to thank the members of the school board first for serving on the board. It's a very difficult job, and thanks for being here tonight. Wild Lake is the first village on the west side of Route 29, and a few years back it got a brand new high school, and more recently a brand new middle school. Oakland Mills is the first village on the east side of Route 29, and our middle school and high school are still the original buildings. What's wrong with that picture? Everything. Oakland Mills needs a new middle school and a new high school. And let me do an analogy. I just finished serving as co-chair of the Housing Opportunities Master Plan Task Force. And our recommendations are for change in zoning regulations and land use, change in policies and programs and procedures, and change in APFO to attain a more diverse housing mix throughout the entire county. So for the school board, I recommend that the school board change policy to focus away from capacity and toward providing excellent facilities in all of the existing schools. We fix this broken picture with a new Oakland Mills Middle School and a new Oakland Mills High School. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Bill. I'm going to wrap things up because I know we're very far over time. First of all, to Ms. Watts, to Ms. Mosley, to Ms. Mallow, thank you again very much for being here. I'm sure you came in, knowing you were going to be facing, less than happy community because, like I said, we didn't have to rehash what the issue was. You know what the issue was, and we wanted to see how we can work together. And I'm going to put you. You don't have to respond, but I am going to put you on the spot a little bit and say that I hope having spent some time with the community that first you'll choose to spend some more time with the community on this issue. I would be very happy to do the coffee. We've got our Dunkin' Donuts. You can see the campus from there. You can just cut across the parking lot and take a tour. We're going to have 3 pizza shops again soon, so we can even get 3 different types of pizza, whatever you want to do. And I would make the same, offer to your other colleagues on the board. But as I said, there were, specific reasons for starting with the 3 of you. But I would also hope that now that you've heard from us, you've heard from our community, that you would begin or continue to be advocates for Oakland Mills on the board. Because one thing, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but one thing I want to remind you is when when the staff comes back with administrative transfers, when the staff comes back with a capital improvement plan or a long range master plan, they work for you. It's not the other way around. So, you know, I hope there will be more pushback if we think the staff isn't being as objective as possible. And, you know, while we said, you know, we're not looking to change the composition of our school, you know, some of what we heard is about PR and is about representation. And one thing I'll point out, and it was said at the beginning, Oakland Mills High is surrounded by overcrowded schools, and Oakland Mills High is under capacity. And in the past 2 major redistricting efforts of high schools, not a single student from the worst overcapacity school, by worst I mean, you know, highest percent overcapacity, not that it's a bad school, Howard High School, not a single student crossed that border that Howard shares with Oakland Mills to come with Oakland Mills. So, you know, part of the composition of the student body of Oakland Mills is because of you know, who lives right here around it in Oakland Mills. But, you know, other parts of that are because of decisions that past boards of education have made over the years. So again, it's that chicken and egg. You know, a school gets a certain reputation, and then it doesn't get the advocacy, and then we're told to do more PR, but we don't really necessarily have, you know, all the people who can invest the time in PR. And I get what you're saying about having 5, you know, very dedicated people, but we've also seen what other communities are able to do, what other schools are able to do. You know, the money they're able to raise sometimes for like really professional PR versus a ragtag group of village board members. So I'd also like you to keep that in mind. You know, it's not just about using capacity to the fullest, but it's how you use the capacity. And just as Oakland Mills of the future appears to be the school that will be sitting there among all these nice either new buildings or you know, recently renovated buildings, Oakland Mills is also the school that has been sitting there that only certain polygons can go to when redistricting comes around, no matter how overcrowded the schools to the north or the schools to the south are.
Yep. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, everyone, for having us. I really appreciate this conversation, and please know that I am advocating for the community. I am advocating that every student in our county has the tools that they need and the opportunities that they need to have the best education that we can provide, and that our staff and our administrative teams are supported and given the tools that they need as well. I hear you, and like I mentioned before, my kids live the Oakland Mills schools as well, and I really want you to know that you guys can reach out to me or other members of the board anytime you feel like you want to is good.
Thank you very much. You're all welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. It's going to be absolutely fascinating, but I also understand if you have to get on with your evening. So thank you again, and we're going to move on to some other business shortly. And Sandy, you know, the August 12th meeting, I was looking at the calendar to put it on the calendar, and if we really need Oakland Mills to come out, we happen to have a pool party scheduled that night. So we might need to see if we need to make some adjustments there so that we're not asking our community to be in 2 places at once, because I may not be popular with some of the pool crowd, but I think this issue might be more important than coming to the pool party. But we can work on that later, or figure out how we're going to, you know, divide and conquer on these things.
You can just have a Zoom connection at the pool party, and everybody can just step up to the laptop, hop out of the pool, come speak their piece, and hop back in.
Brilliant.
Maybe that's it. In fact, maybe that can be what gets it done. I'll show up, you know, on camera in my swimsuit and say to the Board of Education, if you never want to see this again, just do what we're asking of you.
That'll do it. That'll do it.
All right, I'm going to move on to the next item of new business. And actually, I'm gonna make this fairly simple since it is new business and it is unclear. I do agree with, I think, what Mr. DiTomaso was saying. It's been so long ago since we heard residents speak out. While I do think the cemetery would be in better hands, whether it were with CA or the county, I'm just going to go on the record and say this is part of Howard County's heritage. This far predates CA. This has never been a CA plot of land. CA, has its hands full with a lot of other things right now. I really think we should stick with what the agenda says, even if I wrote that agenda item in error. And talk to Dr. Jones and talk to other officials with the county about taking over that cemetery and maintaining it to preserve important Howard County heritage. So those are my thoughts on the matter, but we have a few minutes allocated to this topic, so I'll open it up for other discussion. Don't everyone speak at once.
Well, yeah.
Jenny?
Jonathan, I don't think we have much time tonight to get into this in depth, but I think we'd want to make sure, whether it's the county, CA, or God knows, that it's taken care of, that there's maintenance, that there are certain things that need to be done with that cemetery. So, but I also like the idea of looking into changing the name of the street. I think
so. I do have an update on that. I was going to cover it in the chair report, but I may as well do it now so we don't get sidetracked into that. Not that that's not very important. Sandy did confirm with the chairperson of the county commission looking at various names throughout the county, that Robert Oliver Place is one of the names that's on their radar, because they're doing a complete review of all public facility names, to make sure that they're appropriate for Howard County and appropriate for the 21st century. So that is on the radar. Lynn?
Yeah, I think there is a group in Howard County that really works with historic cemeteries, and I think that it properly belongs with Howard County, not with our Columbia community, even though it physically is now in Columbia, it wasn't. So I think it belongs to the history of Howard County.
Thank you, Lynn. Other thoughts? Bill?
Yeah, I agree that it's more the county than CA. And I think in talking with some CA folks today, that the county does have a group that deals with historical cemeteries and potentially taking them over. So I think maybe we explore that more, but I do think it's more appropriate county than CA.
All right, thank you, Bill. Are there any other comments? So again, since this is new business and we're not, making a final decision or committing, if you don't mind, what I'd like to do is, since we have actually both Ashley and Michael are here from Dr. Jones's staff, could I ask one or both of you to look into this a little bit for us and perhaps report back so that we can, make basically, make an ask that has some chance of success, because, we don't know exactly what the county's role is, or how this group that does things on behalf of the county is funded, but we're certainly potentially interested in that. And if you could get back to us with some information, that might make us that might help us formulate a position and then a communication to the county at our next meeting, or our first meeting in August if we can't get it by the next meeting.
Hey, Jonathan, it's Michael Harris. Sure thing. Yes, we also have a meeting scheduled with Rashida and James this Thursday.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, that didn't save us a whole lot of time, but hey, it didn't take 10 minutes, so, we're not finishing by 9 tonight, I'm sorry, but it was an important topic. All right, let's move on to old business. And actually, this one shouldn't take 10 minutes either, because it's for the vacant board seat. And it says board discussion and vote. There actually is not a board discussion. We did have a special open meeting last week where the board interviewed the 2 candidates. We do have to do the vote in open meeting because there's no reason for this to be a closed session type discussion. However, just like any other Oakland Mills resident voting for representatives to the board, we do get a secret ballot. So board members, if you haven't looked at your email, check it now. All of the voting board members, so that's me, that's Bill, Rebecca, Warren, Lynn, and Rena, can vote for one of the 2 or neither of the 2 candidates that we have before us for the board seat. I sent you a form. It's an anonymous form. So when all the votes come in, I will be able to look at the results, but I will not see how anyone voted. And all I will announce is the outcome. I won't announce the number of votes, who got over whom or anything like that. I will just congratulate the new member of the board, and then we can seat them at the next meeting. Should there be a tie, since we do have an even number, I will just repeat and hope that we can come to a vote where there's not a tie, but we have an even number of people right now. So go ahead and open your emails, and you should have a link to a Google form. And when you click that link, you should get something with the title Board Vacancy Vote, and you will see Jennifer Hood, Patrick Patterson, or abstain as your choices. So go ahead and make your choice. And I don't even believe you need to submit. I think it will automatically record your choice, but I don't have the same view you do because I'm the editor. Oh, yeah, you do have to click submit. So go ahead and make your choice, click submit. And once I see that all the votes are in, I will announce who the selection is.
So Jonathan,
yes.
I don't see that email.
Oh, okay. I did a reply all to Amy's email with the board documents. Let me see if something bounced back on me here. Warren, it went to your wwortman.omca address.
Okay.
Let me send again.
Oh, I see it.
Oh, you got it? Okay. Okay, we have 6 votes in, so everyone is accounted for. And congratulations to Jennifer Hood, and welcome to our board. I need to see if Jennifer is out there.
Here earlier, but I just looked.
Yeah, she may have. I saw her come in earlier, but I don't see her now. So Jennifer Hood will be joining our board effective at the next meeting. And I'd also like to extend a thank you to the other candidate, Patrick Patterson. He was, very involved in Oakland Mills activities during his first stint in Oakland Mills. He and his wife had to move away for a while because of employment, and they're back in the community. And I certainly hope that the Pattersons will be involved with us in other ways, because, and same to everyone here, there are plenty of volunteer opportunities beyond serving on the board. In fact, some of them may be less thankless than serving on the board at times. I'm kidding. The pay is great. So congratulations to Jennifer, and welcome aboard if you're out there listening and we just don't see you, or if you're viewing this recording a little bit later tonight. All right, I'm going to move on to the next. We're just cruising through now. I'm going to move on to the next item, and that is the recap of the 4th of July bike corral from Rebecca and Warren. And before you start, may I just say thank you. That was, I mean, it's amazing the way you pulled that thing together so quickly, and it was a success.
Yeah, Warren, do you want to talk, or do you want me to do it? We didn't discuss that ahead of time.
It's up to you. I could just say we had 50 bikes that parked and took 25 cars off the road. and there were just 6 of us organized, and we had 20 volunteers. It was great, and thank you so much for your financial support. What do you have to say, Rebecca?
Yeah, it was really fun to coordinate quickly, and on the wings of that other thing, Patrick, we thank the Pattersons for bringing that idea to us and us being able to follow up on that. We do hope to repeat it again. We're looking at some other venues, not just CA events or Oakland Mill events. We're trying to reach out, work with Meriwether, and maybe do some things there. So we're not sure what direction we're going, but we are likely going to come back during budget time and see if we can fit this into the Oakland Mills budget to make this a more regular thing, depending on where we go with this. We're trying to figure out what it looks like in the future because we're just 6 random volunteers at this point. So, but yeah, the support in the community was awesome. We do next time want to be able to reach out to our community a little bit more in some different ways, reaching out to the apartments and those who would benefit to without cars more and in different languages. And we didn't have time for all of that this time. We primarily just advertised through the Facebook group. So, and which was pretty great for having 50 people or 50 bikes come out. So yeah, I won't waste your time because I sent the board members that more detailed email with all the logistics. It was really cool, tough, but cool partnership, pooling all the parts from the county to CA, to Bike Coco and Horizon. I'm terrible at this, Warren. Am I forgetting anybody? Who else contributed?
Howard Hughes, there's space.
Right.
HCC,
We worked with Town Center.
Yeah, HCC,
Yeah, the Town Center board helped out too. So anyway, it was a cool collaboration that we will be repeating and we'll report back.
Fantastic. All right, I guess we're on to the board chair report.
Yeah,
So
Rebecca, I mean, Jonathan, could I just say something to Rebecca?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, besides congratulations, you and Warren and everything. You may want to also look at the Inner Arbor Trust, the Chrysalis area. They have a couple of events in addition to Meriwether Post.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah.
all right. Anyone else? Before I'm like rushing along now. All right, board chair report. So I'm going to start with what I had on the agenda and then maybe add something. Actually, before I get to the village center development process, just to make sure everyone knows, because it kind of caught us by surprise since Cedar didn't quite get the dates right when they sent them to me. The hair salon, the unisex hair salon, is open at the Village Center. It actually opened yesterday. Bill, Jeannie, and I were taking a walk through the Village Center this morning, and I said, "What are those balloons?" And we walked in, and we met some of the staff. They were, I mean, so nice, and they agreed to have their picture taken so we could put it on our social media. So, you know, stop in and say hello. Bill got his hair done. It looks fantastic. So nice new addition. The NYC Pizza that's supposed to open next door in the old Veneris location, they were supposed to be opening Thursday. They have pushed that out a week. So it looks like it'll be late next week that they open versus Thursday. I kind of suspected that when their windows were still all boarded up and there seemed to be no activity going on. So I emailed the property manager and she confirmed that they've delayed their opening by a week. Yes, Bill.
That's real quick on that. After you and Ginny left, the owner of New York City Pizza came in with one of these workmen and they looked at that Sub-Zero freezer sitting out front. It won't fit through the door, so they were removing it today. And he said that they're anticipating opening by the end of the month.
Great. All right.
And real quick, and Ginny, he grew up in the Bronx.
So it really is New York City Pizza.
All right, I'll be first in line.
He's not a Yankees fan, is he?
You better not be.
All right. Very, very important for everyone on our board. Village Center development process. Obviously, we had our NRAC, the start of our NRAC process for the proposed 7-Eleven on the vacant lot. on Robert Oliver Place. Hopefully soon not to be Robert Oliver Place, but that's what it is for now. Sorry, James. You know, we followed our process. We are following our process. We've compiled the comments. We've sent them to the developer. The developer now needs to come in with the formal application for the NRAC. There were questions at that meeting, as well as follow-up questions and emails to the board about what about the VCCP, what about Council Bill 29. So Sandy worked with CA staff and others to get clarification. And one thing it's very important for the board to know is that we have to follow our process and we have to follow it carefully. And when the developer, you know, officially, you know, begins filing with the county, that's when the county will do its review, determine whether this is a major or minor village center redevelopment, and then, you know, engage us in the process based on the legislation they passed for redevelopment of village centers. So I know there were some folks out there saying, you know, what about, and we've done the right thing and we're doing the right thing. With that said, we've also learned that Cedar plans to tear down the Second Chance Saloon building, or I guess it's the former Second Chance Saloon building. Now, they initially came in with what they were calling a temporary plan that would tear the building down and replace it with a rock garden. A rock garden is not something that our architectural guidelines will allow. Sandy is in communication with them, you know, about basically putting together a proposal that we could even consider without violating all of our rules. And we may have them come into us with a proposal by the, is it August 10th board meeting, Sandy? Sandy, you're muted.
I'm not anymore. Since I sent the letter that I shared with you, they've not gotten back to me at all.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. So, you know, similar to what's going on with 7-Eleven, very, very important, again, that we follow our process with whatever they bring in. Very important that we first look at it from an architectural perspective, not a development perspective, because that's our NRAC process. And then for the development perspective, Council Bill 29, et cetera, that's where the county actually initiates, you know, once something becomes a development plan before the county. So, you know, I just let everyone know what's happening with 7-Eleven, let everyone know what might be happening with Second Chance, and again, just, you know, caution everyone that we absolutely have to follow our process, because if we do need the county support, you know, with anything, you know, such as invoking Council Bill 29, one of the first things they're going to look at is, did the village board do everything right? So we just have to make sure we do everything right. Sandy's on top of that. Sandy has been in touch with CA staff. Lynn and I are on top of that, because even though this is an architecture matter, the way it's set up, I actually have to preside over that community meeting. And, you know, we're going to keep you up to date as soon as something more concrete comes in. But I wanted to inform you of what, you know, how important it is to follow the process, and also inform you that we think we're going to see something soon from Second Chance, but, you know, what they initially floated to Sandy was something that she had to basically return immediately, because it just can't be done here. Sandy, Lynn, did you have anything to add to that?
Just a second. No, we've sent them the guidelines, and also whatever they present has to be a really detailed demolition, rebuild timeline process, because, you know, just saying we're going to demolish it is not something that they can just hand to the community.
Yeah, Jonathan?
Yes.
I just wanted to just kind of underscore what you said about following our process. And part of that is that we have to be really careful about sidebar conversations, because we've had ran into some problems with that just in trying to iron out what would happen with the existing Exxon property. So, you know, I can talk to you more about that, or I'm sure Jonathan and Sandy can as well. But if you have any questions about that.
Okay, any questions or comments on that?
Oh,
All right.
real quick question. Where is 7-Eleven in the process?
I was told that they are putting together their submission, that the next step is to send an exterior alteration application to the non-residential committee. They've gotten the comments. They have a year from when they receive the comments to send something back. So it's back in their court, but I've heard that they're preparing something we should get at some point, and then the NRAC committee gets together
Is
and
there
reviews it.
any more opportunity for our comments on that?
That 3-week period passed already.
Huh.
I mean, we had 3
I
weeks.
thought they
that
were
the-
coming back after that first meeting.
No, after
Well,
the first meeting, they will. They take all the comments we got and then they prepare an application that goes to the non-residential committee. So
But then-
when is there
but-
more comment?
But then the NRAC eventually comes to us,
The
right?
architecture committee.
Yeah.
Lynn?
Yeah, and it would be presented to the board as a whole, to our association board acting as the architecture committee.
As the architecture committee.
Before it's approved.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, Lynn?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So I guess for the board, there's more opportunity because you serve as the architecture.
Right,
committee.
but we're not doing any more public comment, it's not,
Right.
not being open for that.
Okay, anything else? All right, I actually had one more thing, but I just realized we crossed 9 o'clock. We've all been sitting here for a couple of hours. Does anyone on the board need a 5-minute break or anything? Because I know we still have some stuff to go and we don't normally go past 9. All right, if everyone's good, I'll keep plowing through. Okay. All right. So the only other thing I wanted to cover that's not on the agenda is just, my immediate reaction to our meeting with our members of the Board of Education. First of all, I appreciate that they came because, I know they knew they didn't come here thinking that they were going to get, roses and applause and everything like that, because obviously the community is concerned. I am concerned that some of the response seemed to be trending toward, oh, Oakland Mills, you have to do more. I don't want to go all the way and say it was a blame the victim mentality, but there's only so much Oakland Mills can do, and I think we do have a pretty clear ask, right? When you have buildings that haven't been touched since they were built. I mean, maybe we can be more clear about renovate and rebuild, but not, well, Bill's an engineer. I was going to say none of us are engineers, so we're not, we're not really, educated in how to make that determination. But I think our ask is pretty clear. Give us modern facilities on par with all the other modern facilities in the school system. I really don't think that we're kind of nitpicking and sometimes talking about HVAC, sometimes talking about other things. I mean, when we say $111 million, that's everything. So put the $111 million into fixing that building if that's more cost effective, or put the $111 million into knocking it down and rebuilding it. But it's the same ask. Get rid of this $111 million deferred maintenance and give us a decent facility. So that's my immediate reaction. I'll think about this a little bit more and probably send more thoughts to our board about how we might want to proceed. Obviously, the education committee will also be talking about it. I'll be talking to Oakland Mills United and other advocates in the community, but that was my immediate reaction, and I truly do hope that they take to heart what I said at the end, and that they say we need advocates. Well, there were 3 people before us who could become advocates, and then you only need 1 more, and then you get your 4th person, and then you have 4 votes to get these things done. So I hope that's where this is going, and we will keep pressing forward. And if we need to get someone saying Oakland Mills at every upcoming meeting, I'm sure we can find enough people to say Oakland Mills at every upcoming meeting. And maybe we just need people to stand up and say what I said at the end of my last testimony on behalf of Oakland Mills at the Board of Education meeting: fill them and fix them. I mean, it's very simple, right? Fill them and fix them. Stop avoiding putting students in these schools and then saying you can't fix them because they don't need the capacity. We heard many times how much capacity the school system needs. So how can you get away with having a high school 200 seats under? And the other thing I would add to that is, if you keep the school under capacity, regardless of its demographics, that also means there are fewer people out there to advocate for that school. You know, when our friends to the north are overflowing with like 1,700 people, and we're at 1,200, when we could be at 1,400 just to be at capacity, well, that's potentially 500 more families advocating for that school that we don't have. So there is a lot of chicken and egg going on here, and you know, somehow we need to like catch the egg and throw it as hard as we can against the wall to crack it, to break that cycle. So those are my thoughts on that, and I'm going to move on to Ginny now before I say something and then get myself in trouble.
Thanks, Jonathan. Actually, maybe I should lower my hand before I say something about that issue and get in trouble too. Although, just to share, I'm very frustrated about it. I don't quite understand what the problem is in terms of the appropriate people understanding what the issue is. They've got to understand. So what is the difficulty in simply doing something about it? I just am somewhat at a loss. You know, the staff should be saying, my God, this is a serious issue. School board members should be saying it, other appropriate elected officials. So I'm really at a loss as to what more do we have to do, or the residents of Oakland Mills have to do. I mean, we can, we can be there, we can pick it, but we're already doing some of that. So I just don't know what's wrong. I really would love to get an honest answer about why we're being ignored. Why we're not taken seriously, why our students aren't being taken seriously.
I would too, and like I said at the beginning, it's one thing when elected officials are listening to the loudest voices or the PR because they need the votes, but the staff should be completely objective in this. And it's not only the staff that makes the capital improvement plan, it's also the staff that continuously comes out with these feasibility studies that have, redistricting scenarios that the board doesn't have to take, but it's the beginning of the conversation. And we see the redistricting scenarios that come out of the staff in those feasibility reports year after year. They're absolutely atrocious to Oakland Mills schools. And I don't know how many different ways I can say it. The staff should not be biased like this. The staff doesn't need votes. The staff, doesn't need to be part of a popularity contest. The staff should be responsible for every student and every school in the system and consider that, not play favorites. But I truly believe they do, because this, the Board of Education has some cover because they're just saying they're taking what the staff is giving them, but the superintendent works for the Board of Education, not the other way around. They can send it back.
Right, I agree. Okay, want me to start on my?
Go for it, yeah.
Okay, I do see Amy's hand up. I don't know if.
Oh, I didn't see it. Oh, I'm looking at Amy Carpenter. There's Amy Brooks.
I just want to say that OMO has been doing like some live chatting, and John, you represented us really well as a community, and you really verbalized a lot of the frustration we were feeling. So thank you. I felt like you were channeling, and Antonia said exactly what I said about why people leave. So we need to overcompensate for that. But OMO would like to commit to a monthly action item and really compiling some succinct ways for all of our local organizations to bombard whoever needs to hear it. And they need the wind beneath their wings to make changes. So even though we have great relationships with Jones and Ball and Rigby and everybody else, we need to make more noise. And we think that OMO could be a great way to disseminate that information. So we're looking forward to collaborating with you more and getting like all of the links and numbers and scripts maybe for that to happen, and anybody else who's listening to this.
Thank you very much.
Good idea. Okay, Jonathan, I know it's getting late, but just two quick things. One is in terms of the Howard County general plan position from CA paper that you guys have seen. I did get an amendment onto it when you're talking about Council Bill 29 in 2009 that I and then the board agreed with, felt was important. We really needed to put in our document that the county needed to pay attention to that that was an important document. Each village had taken long time to develop their village center plans, and that had to be honored and looked at, and not just say village centers need to be transformed, but in accordance with Council Bill 29 as it was developed by that village. So that was just a quick change. The budget process, that's the last thing I wanted to talk about. That's online and it's starting to roll out. July 22nd, we'll have the head of our marketing department, Tim, present the entire plan for communicating more with residents and businesses in Columbia, excuse me. And some of that has started already with what he calls Let's Talk. And you can go online and just talk about anything regarding Howard County or Columbia. Excuse me. There's one change that I just want to share with the board. The CA will not be asking for a letter from the board. Sorry about this. Requiring, you to say, these are the things that I want CA to do, this whole list. But I would suggest that, well, you won't be asked that from CA staff, because there'll be a process where there are a lot of people will be getting involved in what they think is needed. I would strongly suggest that you do that and you do it right away before September, so that will be into consideration. So I know we talked about it earlier today, but that's my advice. So anything that the village board feels that they really need, like, for example, the restrooms on the second floor of the other barn, anything else, I would suggest that you sort of get together, decide what it is, and just send a quick letter to CA. Thank you.
I agree. I mean, I think it's important for us to get together and know what our priorities are regardless. And if we're going to do that, we may as well record it and send it in.
Yeah, but you need to do it quickly, because they're getting all this input under Let's Talk and other things that they'll then be dealing with. So you want to be in line as well, not wait until normally it was January, you were sending in a letter in the past. I would do it now. Okay, thanks.
Is that it?
Yeah, well, it's late and
Yeah, we're getting efficient here.
you want me to go on? You want me to talk about the rock garden and the second chance?
No. All right.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Jenny. Sandy, financial and operations update.
Yeah, maybe they meant to say a rose garden. Let's think that we read it wrong.
You're positive. Okay.
They never promised us a rose garden either.
Sure.
I don't have anything to report. We haven't finished our first quarter yet, so I don't have financials. We're up and operating. We've had a number of very successful rentals. We're back, working the office on a hybrid schedule. You can always find us on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and the other days are random of when we have meetings and who's in the building and who's not. And always by email, and that's about it.
Thanks, Sandy. Any questions for Sandy? All right, committee reports. Warren, public space.
Public space. We're going to have an in-person meeting at the Bland Air Park North instead of Zoom. That'll be July 20th from 7 to 8. It'll be at the pavilion next to the bocce ball courts. And I just want to say, this has been a long Zoom, but I really hate Zooms, and I'm looking forward to the day that we can all meet together in person. I don't know when that might happen, but I'd love to have the board meet in person. But we're going to do that in person outside, and we'll talk about the Oakland Mills No-Mow Hill and also the Orchard Green Path.
Warren,
Yes.
there was a meeting that I found out about late, it was last Friday. So if you want to talk to Jonathan and we can fill
We
you in.
talked.
Oh, you did talk. Okay.
Yeah, Warren
Yes.
and I talked, and I sent Warren, I sent Herb Savji an email and copied you and told him, please
saw
include
that.
Warren on
Oh,
all future
okay.
correspondence. But just for the benefit of the rest of the board, if I can hijack a little bit, since you
Sure.
weren't there, the school system kind of screwed up the attendance list, and I didn't realize they had only invited me, despite Sandy and Warren being the people who met with them in the first meeting. So we met on the Hill, we took a look. It's getting late. Long story short, there's short-term stuff, medium-term stuff, long-term stuff that we're pursuing. Short-term, they agreed that they're going to mow a wider swath at the top and the bottom, so the unmowed part will be a bit narrower. So at least if you're walking along the sidewalk on Thunder Hill, you don't have the grass reaching out trying to grab you and put ticks on you. Medium term, instead of cutting the hill once per year, they're going to bring the equipment out to cut the hill twice per year. Longer term, in partnership with the watershed stewards and the village board, and this is going to involve looking for funding from the county. Watershed stewards are going to look for funding from the University of Maryland Extension. We might look to see what our budget looks like as we get to the end of the fiscal year. We made clear to them that we're not expecting a nice manicured mowed hill that looks like the outfield of the Oakland Mills baseball stadium. It's not environmentally sound. It's also not safe for their staff, because there was a guy from Recreation and Parks who, and I didn't realize it, who said that they actually lost someone on a piece of equipment when it went over on a hill, and we certainly don't want that to happen. But we want it to be more aesthetically pleasing and environmentally friendly. So the plan we're looking at now is, Sandy gave a good example, what you often see like along the sides of interstates or in the medians, where you plant perennial native flowers, and then during the growing season you have an attractive flower garden instead of just all this grass and weeds everywhere. And then of course when the growing season is over, they die off, and the hill is kind of barren anyway, because everything in the winter is kind of barren, and then the next spring they come back up again. So instead of it looking like just a bunch of grass growing that no one's cutting as the spring goes into summer, it'll be a hill full of flowers. And Bill, unfortunately, the suggestion of spelling out Oakland Mills was immediately shot down as way too hard to maintain. It would turn into a mess within the first year. I did offer an alternative to that, and that was maybe start the hillside primarily orange if there's an appropriate native plant, and then have it transition over to red as you get toward the village center, because orange is the color for the high school and red is the color for the middle school. And if you can blend that and make it look nice, I don't know. So, we can look at something like that. But it sounds like we are going to try to go with something that, instead of it being unmaintained, it will have native flowering plants, and then it will be maintained by the watershed stewards and the school system and perhaps volunteers. The county also plays a role, so I plan on bringing that up when we meet with Dr. Jones next week, because it was the other thing they shared with us is that it was actually the county that wanted that hill addressed differently because of the silt that it was depositing on the sidewalk, as well as the runoff into the gutters and then into the county waterways. So it was actually the county that was funding the reforestation project out of highways. And of course that ran out of money, but the recommendation actually from the Recreation and Parks horticulture expert was that they do not continue the reforestation on that hill, because the way they were doing it, once those trees mature, you would basically have a poison ivy forest. And since that street's already lined with the tall oak trees anyway, he didn't see the purpose of putting all those trees on the hillside and then just sort of letting everything grow wild.
So Jonathan, when you meet with Dr. Jones, could you also mention the Orchard Green path is being looked at again by CA?
Yes.
Great. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Warren. Sorry to sorry to hijack your report, but they didn't invite you, and I didn't realize that till we all got there. And poor Sandy had I don't know how you made it over there so fast.
10 to 9, he said, so will you be there? I'm like, where? I knew where to go.
All right. Lynn, architecture?
Yeah, I don't have anything, just that I'm looking forward to progress being made on our development projects in the Village Center. Some interesting stuff coming along.
All right, very good. All right, I'm going to go right to the bulletin board. Amy, anything from the office? All right, Ginny? No?
No.
Rena?
No.
Rebecca? Lynn?
No.
Warren?
No.
Bill?
Nope.
Sandy?
I just thank you, Jonathan, and for putting together the meeting and all the residents that attended. I actually think we had like 75. The count on Zoom is wrong, so we had a whole lot more. And I share frustrations that you all are feeling right now, but I think that we just have to keep up the conversation.
Yeah, I agree. Believe it or not, I do have something kind of unrelated to board business. Just want to, if everyone could spread the word. If you've been following the various COVID-related stimulus efforts, the child tax credit has been doubled for this year, and it is a fully refundable credit. The only restrictions on it are, well, you have to have children and then their income levels, but the income levels are pretty high. And, apparently a lot of people who maybe don't have a filing requirement think that they're not eligible or they don't know how to file. So if you know anyone who doesn't know anything about this and isn't getting it, the advance payments are actually supposed to start this Thursday, and they're going to be issued every month through the end of the year. And that's how you'll get half of it. And then the other half you get when you file your tax return in your 2021 tax return in 2022 and claim your dependents. And it's, like I said, it's doubled, and it could actually pull a lot of people out of poverty if they know about it. And if you know someone who doesn't know if they're supposed to get it, doesn't know what to do, maybe hasn't had to file a return, if they go to irs.gov, there's plenty of information there, as well as a portal where they can register to claim the credit, even if they didn't have to file a return in 2020 or 2019. So, please, spread the word, because I'm sure there are a lot of people in our community who could benefit from this, and they may not realize it's out there or that they're eligible for it. And that's all I have. If there's nothing else, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Good night. Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you.